Hey everybody. Uh, Today we're going to do kind of a mini consult kind of video. I haven't done one of these exactly before. We're going to give it a shot. So Crystal, one of our patrons, she contacted me and said, hey, I like the stuff you're doing on the home security thing. And I'm a little concerned that my house could be targeted if it gets bad, if things get bad here in the next coming weeks and months. And just a little bit of background, I'm not going to go totally into depth on it, but she's law enforcement officer, is away from the house about 12 hours a day. She lives in a single family home in a good part of a ghetto, which I'm not sure I really understand what that is, but she's close to the Mexican border. And most of her neighbors she knows pretty well. She thinks they know that she's a law enforcement officer. She's got a couple of dogs, a couple of German Shepherds, but she's got one neighbor that she doesn't really care for and is suspicious of. And it's kind of a low income area, from what her description was. And so she lives alone. At least that's my understanding, is when she's gone, there's nobody else there. And so she was asking me if I could come up with some things to potentially help her with keeping her house from being targeted. And I don't know that I have super great suggestions, to be honest, but I'm going to go through like 10 things that I thought of. And hopefully these aren't too redundant. Some of them were mentioned in the other videos, but I'm going to expand a little bit. I'm going to try to expand a little bit on each one of them. So the first one, she said that she parks her cars outside, or cars. But she does have a 2-car garage at the house. So my first idea or suggestion would be to see if you can explore emptying the garage out so that you can park inside the garage. And I know that might be hard, especially as a prepper, because that's where we like to store a lot of stuff and all that kind of thing. But I would suggest trying to distribute or sell some of that stuff in the garage if you can. If it's not necessary things, if it's not things that you need, then consider selling it. If it is part of your preps and stuff like that, then distribute it throughout the house in smaller quantities, in closets, tucked under beds, in corners, and that kind of stuff. And if you take a whole bunch of stuff and you break it up into little piles and spread it throughout the house, then you can probably make room for a car. And I'm just guessing now. I don't have the benefit of knowing exactly what's in the garage or why the car can't be in there, or those kinds of things. So I have limitations here, I guess is what I'm saying. But I would do what I can to do that. I would try to empty the garage out, and that way that you always pull your car in. Hang on. Okay. Sorry about that. Got a little slight interruption. So where was I? Yeah, if you can pull the car in the house or in the garage, that way nobody necessarily knows when you're home and when you're not home. You know what I'm saying? From the outside, it's going to be more difficult to tell. And that kind of leads into the second tip, and that is to black out any windows that you have in your garage. If you've got windows in there that people could look in, then black those out. Cover them with, flat paint. I believe you said you rented the home. If you are careful about how you do it and you just put the flat paint on the glass, you can scrape that off with a razor later. So it wouldn't be that big of a deal. I think that's a good one. I think you really need to explore a way to do that, because from what I gathered from the email, and again, I just went through, for the other people watching, I just went through some of the details of it. it's essentially, her concern is that there are other people in the neighborhood who know when she comes and when she goes, and she's afraid that when she's gone, people could target the house to break in and get food and stuff. So you need to do what you can to remedy that situation somehow. I don't know how, but getting the car in the garage would be a good first step, I think. And then blacken those windows out. Okay. So the next thing is you want to leave the lights on and the TV on, but have all of your shades pulled so that nobody can see in the house. That's going to work to your benefit, because it's just going to make people second guess, especially if they don't know if the car's there or not. This is not foolproof by any stretch, but I think that could potentially help. You probably already do that, I'm assuming, but if it's a rental house and you hadn't put up curtains or drapes or something like that, you might consider doing that. It's not a drastic renovation. It doesn't cost very much. And a lot of people, when they rent, they'll tend to leave just what's there. You know what I mean? And that's normal. But you could consider getting some better stuff so that it makes it more difficult to tell if somebody's there or not. But you want to leave the lights on behind it so they can see that light coming through just a little bit or whatever, and wonder, if you're there. You could also do the thing like I talked about in the other video, putting different things on timers, so that lights are on in this part of the house for a couple hours, and then they move and they're on this part of the house for a couple hours, and then maybe it moves back to this part of the house for a few hours or something along those lines. Giving the impression that if somebody's watching it, that there's somebody moving around. Okay, so number 4, I think this one might be the most important one, to be honest with you, based on the situation and the way I understand it. And that is, get a roommate. It sounds like a big portion of the issue is that there's nobody else there when you're gone. And so fix that. It's not as easily said or easily done as it is said. I understand finding somebody to live with is a hard thing to do, especially as law enforcement officers. We're slow to trust and all that kind of stuff. So I get it. But if you're in a single family home, if you have an extra bedroom, you could rent that out, and then that puts another person there. I mean, I would definitely recommend doing a pretty extensive vetting. Meet with them multiple times before you invite them into your home. And if it's not somebody you already know and trust, right? If it's already somebody you know and trust, that would be a good thing. If you have a church or something along those lines, it might be beneficial to speak to a pastor and let them know that you're looking for a roommate. That might be one good, possible opportunity. At work, you could ask people around and, say, hey, I'm looking for a roommate. Got a room here for rent, pretty cheap. And then give you, a few $100s or whatever extra a month to put towards your preps or whatever. I think that bears heavy consideration on if it's possible. I don't know if it is, but think about that one. The next one is, since you've got dogs, I would make sure that you have beware of dog signs all over the outside, on the outside of the fence, on the front door, wherever. Make it apparent, hey, there's big mean dogs in here. Don't screw with them. Even if they're puppy dogs, even if they lick people when they come over, make it seem like it's worse. Okay. Get an alarm system. A lot of times in rentals, people don't think about this because, if you get the classic style alarm, like like an ADT or whatever, you have to have somebody come and it's intrusive and they have to put stuff in, maybe look at Simply Safe. One of those kind of alarms that are essentially, they're not permanent. It's just double-sided tape, and a lot of the sensors and stuff. And then put that sign right out there in front. And then every once in a while, what I would do is let that puppy go off. Let those exterior alarms and that big blaring sound, let that go off a few times so people know that there's an alarm there. Because again, my understanding is you're concerned about your neighbors potentially targeting you. So if they hear that alarm has gone off a few times, they know you've installed an alarm and all that kind of stuff, they might be like, dang, we're not going to be able to get away, or, get away with it or whatever. So something to think about there. Okay. Next one is install motion detector floodlights. And it doesn't even have to be the big ones. You can even do the small solar ones. I'll try to put a link to some that I've gotten before. They're little solar powered motion lights from Baxia off of Amazon, and they're pretty bright. And all they do is you just screw them into the house, 2 little screws. It's no big deal. You don't have to do any wiring or anything like that. But when anybody comes walking around, it's going to set those lights off, and they stay on for like 2 minutes, and they're pretty bright. And so you could have them at, multiple locations around the front, sides, and the entries of the house. And, that might discourage some folks as well. It's also going to help other neighbors who might be good guys to see that somebody's screwing around your house at night. You know what I mean? Okay, let's see here. Speaking of neighbors, this is one that I hadn't had on the list, but my understanding is that some of your neighbors, but you don't really know them well. And I say that because you said that one neighbor knows your law enforcement, and the other ones you don't know for sure if they do. I would suggest spending some time investing in those relationships with the people that live in your immediate area, in your immediate vicinity, because find ways to do stuff for them, to help them out if you can. Spend some time talking with them, try to go out of your way to get to know them a little bit. And I know it's awkward and it's hard to do sometimes, but sometimes when you just show a little bit of effort that you're trying to get to know people, they'll warm right up to you. And so I think that's going to be worthwhile in this case, because if you can develop a few allies in the area, if somebody else is screwing around your house, they might be more willing to give you a call, and give them your card. Give them your card from work and say, hey, as you guys know, or I don't know if you knew or not, I'm a law enforcement officer, and I always try to keep a good eye on your place. If I can get your cell phone number, if I ever see anybody walking around, I'll let you know. I'll give you a call. And if you could do the same for me, I'd sure appreciate it. Those kinds of things. Maybe you can, I don't know how long you've lived there, but if you just lived there recently, then you could just go over and just introduce yourself. You know what I mean? Just talk to people, just be real friendly and that kind of thing. And that really goes a long ways a lot of times. It's super awkward. I get it. But I think that's a valuable thing for you to do in this situation. You need to let them know. You need to be forthright in letting them know that you're willing to help them if something's gone awry in the neighborhood or whatever the case may be. And then go out of your way to just do some friendly things for them. If you bake some cookies, bake extra 6 or a dozen or whatever, and take them over to them. If you, maybe you did a barbecue, and invite them over to come over and say hi or something, I don't really know. But my point is find a way to get to know the neighbors. Okay. Let's see here. We were at number 8. So you said you had multiple sliding glass doors. I would also make sure that they have drapes over them. Many times in rentals, they don't have like a full set of like an actual cloth drape. A lot of times they'll just have those kind of ratty vertical, shade things, and half of them, you can't, they don't operate right, or they're turned wrong, and you can see through kind of easily. So, I would recommend putting an actual full curtain across there so that they can't see in. And then also make sure you got a dowel in each one of those. And I talked about that in the lesson here on Patreon. So you could refer to that and see kind of a picture of what I'm talking about. You basically just cut like a 3/4 to 1 inch dowel, the length of the track, and you can lay it down inside there. And that's going to make it a lot harder to open. Okay. Number 9 is during the weekends and, maybe anytime when you're not working or whatever in the daytime, take your dogs out in the front yard and work with them, train them. I don't know how trained they are. They might be super trained. They might not have any training. You didn't comment on that in the video, but the point in doing this is, if they haven't been trained, consider actually taking them to obedience training or like guard dog training, that kind of thing. Shepherds are super smart dogs, and they can be taught basically. And so if they're not already, which I'm assuming they probably are to a certain degree, then take them out in the front yard, train them, work with them, play catch with them, whatever. Just get them out there so that the neighbors can see the dogs and see that they're working with you and that they're following your commands and those kinds of things. Again, I think that the dogs are an asset in your particular situation, and exploiting that just a little bit more and letting people know about them, taking them for walks in the neighborhood, whatever the case may be, I think is probably a good thing in all. Okay. Last but not least is based on the general tone of the email, I'm picturing that you're not living in the greatest place, and that, based on salary constraints and different things of that nature, that it's the best you can do for now, but you like something different. And so I would encourage you to put in for a transfer, put in for promotion at every opportunity. You've only got to serve in the position in the federal government, in the GS system, which I'm assuming that's where you're working. You've only got to be in a position for 12 months, and then you can start applying for promotion to higher positions and for lateral transfers. And so I don't know if that's, exactly your agency's policy or not, but look for transfer opportunities to try to better your situation. Maybe if debt is an issue, and I don't have any idea if it is, if debt is an issue, then take a look at Dave Ramsey's products. The Total Money Makeover is an excellent book. If you follow his plan, you will make money. You will get out of debt, and you will better your financial situation. And that goes for just anybody. It's just a great book, and it is a great way to build wealth. And so maybe, if you can look at getting a promotion, getting a transfer, or increasing your salary status in some way, or the amount of wealth that you have, then you might be able to better your living position so that it's not as much of a concern. So those are the things I can think of, just kind of based off of a short email, you know what I mean? And I don't know that I have enough information to fully understand your situation. So if I didn't get it right, I apologize. But these are the things that I would be thinking about. And I think getting a roommate and clearing that garage out are probably two of the most key elements there, aside from the last one that we just talked about. But anyhow, I hope it was helpful. So guys, if you guys, other patrons, if you have situations, questions, things that you'd like to get my opinions on, then let me know. Shoot me an email, American Prepping Academy at protonmail.com, and I'll do you up a video on it and try to help you out. Just be as detailed as you can in the email so that I can understand the situation as much as possible. That's going to be, I'm limited on how much I can understand, you know what I mean, from just an email. So anyway, yeah, I'd love to try to do that. I'd love to try to help you guys out. You guys are helping me out, and I want to help you out. And so, please feel free to contact me, and let's do some of these, see how it works out. All right. That's it for now. We'll get back to you shortly.